Folks, for over a year now, we've been extolling the virtues of buying precious metals. As you can see, Fort Knox is about to be audited, and that's imminent, and you're going to see that gold reserves are little to none. What do you think that'll do to the price of gold? And with silver being ransacked with COMEX on the markets, that's sure to follow as well. The only question is, are you going to take action or not? If you haven't, what are you waiting for? And if you have, please take a moment to visit one of our great sponsors here below, the link in the description, and call for the information. It's free. The consultation is free. The cost of not taking advantage of this has lasting consequences, folks. Please tell them John and Chris sent you. You'll be more than happy that you did. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the podcast. We have with us a special new guest, but somebody I've known for quite a number of years who was gracious enough to bring me onto her podcast back during the ending stages of the scamdemic. And she's also good friends with mutual friend Denise Bolin. So it was just the triune coming back to the center. And so we're honored to have her on today, Miss Jennifer Eason Washington. We're going to be talking about her background in its cursory stages, how she got to the point where she is now, and what she's up to as of late. So as always, if you're new to the podcast, please do like, subscribe, and share so that this channel can grow and others can gain in the knowledge you're currently being afforded. Now I will read Jennifer's bio summarily. Jennifer Eason Washington is a cultural storyteller, fiber artist, and founder of The Cultural Reckoning, a creative platform that exposes historical truth and celebrates spiritual restoration through visual media, spoken word, and hands-on craft. A former nurse and fierce advocate, she now channels her healing work into community spaces, especially at her local farmers markets, whereby racial reconciliation takes root. Blending the wisdom of her ancestors with a creative flair and of Jennifer weaves, she has joy, justice, and remembrance into every stitch, story, and sacred gathering. And with that, Jennifer, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing today, my dear?
Well, thank you. It's an honor to be with you, having a nice conversation like we always do. I've
Yes.
missed our conversations, and I look forward to this one.
Likewise, and just to give people some historical context, you had a podcast on YouTube back, I think, 4 or 5 years ago, and that's how I met you, was through Denise. And you were kind enough to bring me on occasionally on your live platforms, which I always appreciated. So you have your own audience, and so this just seemed like a naturally appropriate thing to bring it back to the center of where it all began with you and Denise, as we are rounding the bend of this exciting new season with the wealth transfer and other things. So if you don't mind bringing the audience up to speed who's not familiar with you, talk a little bit about your nursing background, how long you did that, why you left, and how you transitioned to the next phase, if you would.
Oh, sure. Well, I've been a nurse most of my life because I was doing nursing as a kid. I had a grandmother who was injured by the polio vaccine. I've told this story, and I like to keep telling this story because it is very pertinent to the times we live in. So she was injured by that polio vaccine, and it rendered her crippled, and she had lots of health issues, and she was a healthy woman before that. So I helped with her care because when my parents were divorced, we lived with my grandparents. So I helped with her wound care and things like that. The whole family, it was just, we all joined in because we didn't put her in a facility, we took care of her. So it was all hands on deck. And that's really where it started for me, is caring for her and learning how to navigate. She would have me go upstairs and run and get medications. I had to learn how to read the medications, and because she was always in a bad mood, a lot of times because of the pain she was in. So if I didn't get the right medicine, I would be in trouble. So I had to learn to read. Can you imagine reading medications? And she'd say, "Get my Darvon," if anybody knows the old Darvon and thing. I still remember these old meds. Crazy.
Wow.
But anyway, that was my path for the healing arts, you could say. My grandfather, he always had a book with him called Back to Eden. So he was this more holistic guy. My grandparents were kind of, opposites attract kind of thing. She was more traditional. He was too, but he was more open to things like that. And I loved what he taught me, with the naturopathic kind of ways of healing and practicing medicine, if you want to say, in your own family. And so that was my introduction to healthcare and wellness.
Interesting. Okay. Thank you for that.
Mhm.
How long did you approximately practice nursing slash medicine? And what was, I think it's more obvious, but people should hear from you. What was the ultimate impetus that had you leave the profession?
Yeah. It is like 2020, right? The pandemic. That was a big wake up call for me. I was already falling out of love with the profession because of a lot of the things that the public knows about the nursing shortage and just the way healthcare has gone. I've watched it go from a more high quality service to money driven, cost cutting, quality just gone. So I've watched it deteriorate, and that leaves you in a bad, like, it lowers your morale for the profession. I've tried to escape the profession, but it would always pull me back in. I went and became a barber. I learned barbering because I said, I don't know, it made sense to me to become a barber. I don't know why. And I just love the art of barbering, and especially the straight razor shaves,
Mhm.
they're more medicinal, I would say. And I like those because it's a procedure, really. You're using a razor that is sharper than a surgeon's scalpel. So you have to really be skilled for those. And that's my favorite barbering service, by the way. So I tried to escape nursing because I wasn't ready to retire, of course, financially, but it was always something that I could do. But I didn't like the direction it was going in. Lots of mean girl bullies and, just terrible workplace conditions, shortages, and just horrible things. So when the pandemic popped up, I had been already doing some nursing, and I was asked to go to New York. And I said, well, I'll go up there. I wasn't scared anymore. The first few patients that I had, that they put me on a COVID unit, I, more so didn't know what was going on. We were all in the dark, remember? And
Mhm.
my hospital I was working at, they were telling half truths to us to, I don't know, it was weird. If, long story, like just how weird the environment was. But I know a lot of people experience the weirdness on different levels. So I knew that something was wrong. My discernment, bells were going off because they were not telling the truth. So I ended up being recruited to work on a COVID unit. And initially, I was nervous. It felt like I was in a movie, like one of those dystopian movies. Will Smith, I expected to come from around the corner. And it was bizarre. And the other nurses were really scared. So it was a lot of fear. And that was my problem. I don't like being among fearful people because I know that fear makes you do things that you wouldn't normally do.
Mhm.
And especially if people are being fearful for no reason. It's like nothing's happening right this minute. Why are we acting this way? Like, the plague has just come upon us. So I wasn't buying into that. And I was instantly at odds with almost everyone in my profession. And it was very bizarre. So going up to New York, I thought, okay, they'll be more educated. This was considered ground zero again, right? And I started catching more inconsistencies in the narrative. They would say things on the news like, oh, all the beds are full. And then I'm going down a hall, and yeah, I had my camera, and I'm filming empty rooms. I'm just walking down a corridor of empty rooms, each side empty, empty, empty. I still have the footage, but they were telling the public that every bed was full. So these are the things that, you start to really see something is really wrong here. And I was trying to tell people in a way that wasn't very alarmist, But
Mhm.
I was just trying to tell people, don't fear. Just really like think first and research and just relax. Look around you, like what's really happening if you weren't watching the news with the ticker tapes. Remember how ridiculous it
Oh, yeah.
was?
Yeah.
So going up there and realizing that we were just in an active psyop, that gave me a different feeling about the profession. So I've been a nurse since 1991 in terms of a licensed nurse. Graduated from, nursing school in 91. So that's how long I've been a nurse. And I worked in big pharma part of that time, 10 years in big pharma. So I have a point of view that's based on experience that, that's the reason in the nutshell. A
Yeah,
long
no,
explanation, right?
no, it's great. There's a story within the story. Before I ask you the next question, it's interesting because if I'm not mistaken, if I remember, I saw a video expose on barbers and the old barber poles. And I think initially they used to be doctors back in the day. So maybe it wasn't such a fantastical leap for you to go sort of not so much out of your profession, but kind of around it in a sort of juxtaposed way to come back in it. So you were nursing for roughly 30 years, basically, before you left. Was there, beyond the fact that it was a psyop and a scam, what else did you learn about that part of your life that surprised you, even beyond the things that you thought you knew?
Well, I realized in that time period, even though I'm in New York and I love New York, it's always something to do, but it was really a sleepy town then. I would walk around empty streets. You could just lay down and take a nap in the middle of the street. And it was it was interesting the time I had to stop and slowly observe the world and also research things that I started questioning. And it's traumatic to wake up to all these lies. You're like, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense now that I think about it. I had already known that there were conspiracy theories that were truth. I knew that, but I was shocked at the level of this psyop that was happening. And what it did for me is I learned that people just aren't as strong, just mentally strong as a society. We just have a lot of fragile people mentally. And I was really shocked at just how many people exhibited such fragility and just little faith, no faith, especially from the church. I didn't see
Mm,
examples of faith. In fact, a lot of them were acting more afraid, having church services in a parking lot. You drive by and you see parking lot with people outside with masks on, and just myself, it made me not want to be around people for a period of time because it was just hard. It's like a fear frequency they were putting out, you
yeah.
know, and that made me draw in and lean into the Lord more. I just leaned in to my faith and family and also learning history, really delving into history. And that has been the greatest part of this 5-year span is that the history that I've now looked at, questioned, and looking at alternatives to the story that I heard, or just dissecting the narrative, and just does it make sense? Using discernment. So that's what I've been learning the most. It's been good, it's been painful, just a mix of a lot of things.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a rich tapestry of things you've been through, getting to know you a little bit on the back end. So let's delve into that. I'm glad you brought that sub point up because I'm a Christian and you know that this is a primarily a faith-based channel. for the global reset for God's giving people. So not so much the finances, but talk about your relationship with the Lord. When did you first develop that? How has that enriched throughout the years? You touched on the last 5 years. It's really ticked up precipitously. How did your faith come about in your personal, kind of your testimony, in other words?
Well, coming from a family of faith, my mother and her parents were people of faith of the Baptist denomination. So I grew up going to Baptist church, and it tends to be strict, fire and brimstone, lots of fear of hell, very well put into me, and also a very rich, I don't know, tradition, where people got together on Sundays after church. You have a big family dinner, things like that. So that was my introduction to Christianity as more of a cultural thing, family tradition. But when I got older, I started to question. I was really precocious when it came to especially the end times. I don't know why that interested me, but my mother used to work for an evangelical society in Philadelphia, and I would go to work with her. That's another thing that influenced me. I would go to work with her, and they would let me do things like stamp the envelopes. You know how they do when you go to work with your parents. So I'm
Sure.
like stamping envelopes, and I'm really having a great time. And they had lots of books because it was a publishing house and a historical evangelical society. So a lot of times they would have really interesting conversations going on. And I'm like, ear hustling as a kid. And I would hear these amazing things like they would talk about like, oh, they knew when the Antichrist was born. People really were studying like the exact time that the Antichrist was born. And those kind of conversations were happening around me. And then movies were coming out. You remember The Exorcist and The Omen. And it was a big push towards end times,
Mhm.
eschatology, the
Mhm.
Antichrist, and things like that. So I became interested in that also as a child because my mom talked about the rapture and you would hear trumpets and I would, in my child's mind, the movies that play in your mind, I'm like,
Mm.
wow, it's scary, but I just want to experience that too. It was fantastical. So I love that. And she had a book always on her nightstand, Hal Lindsey, you remember the late great Planet Earth. And I
Mhm.
would read that like as a kid. So that was also something that led me down the path. And I have to say, also, my mom worked, she was divorced, and I was a latchkey kid for real. Okay, I'm not like a fake latchkey kid like you hear these politicians try to come off with their stories. I was a latchkey kid for a period of time, right? And I would go to also a lady who watched children, but she was a terrible like babysitter. She would just let us play outside forever, never check on us. And so there was a couple in the neighborhood. They had a Bible study for the children in the neighborhood. Can you imagine? They had a big old, those old stone homes in Philadelphia, and they had a
Sure.
basement all like decked out like a school. It was like a Sunday school. And so they would invite us, I think it was 2 days a week, like Tuesday or Thursday, I remember. We would line up outside of that basement door. Kids just lined up from the neighborhood because this couple, they dedicated their lives to like proselytizing the children. Like they really did evangelize us as children. Like it wasn't anything weird or creepy. They had a real heart for the Lord. And they had nice little things for us, like little prizes. We would do things like, I don't know if you did this, like you race to find a Bible verse. They would say John 3:16 or John, and we'd have to hurry up and find it.
Yeah.
And then whoever got it, we stand up and read it. And it
Yep.
was just so many, they did so many nice things and brought the Bible to life. And I have to give them credit, that couple. I don't know where they are to this day, but I know they impacted a lot of us kids that it kept us, in our faith as well as what our parents instilled into us. So for me, I had an just early experience with faith, the Bible, introduction to how you have a relationship with the Lord, Jesus Christ, what he did. I knew how to articulate my faith because of the training. So it was just, I don't know, it was just like instilled. I was put on the path, I'll say. I strayed too. I strayed a lot. Yeah,
That's
it wasn't a
that's
perfect relationship. I haven't been a good friend to Jesus, so yeah.
his mercy and compassion. We all go through that. His understanding is able to bridge that gap and bring us back in because he never leaves, right? And so
Mhm.
as long as he knows the end from the beginning, thank goodness. So he's long suffering with us because he knows he made us imperfect as a means to have a dependency upon him, and you came back. And so at the end of the day, that's all that matters. But I can certainly relate to what you're talking about. Thank you for that. One other thing also I wanted to talk to you about in this discussion, Jennifer, is because I've seen it on your channels firsthand, and I don't get this opportunity with most of my guests to explore the space, and it's really up your wheelhouse, and that is uh, growing up, however you want to put it, Black, African American, melanated, whatever term you want to use. You have a unique vantage point over some people, like myself, for instance. And so I learned a lot from you about the boule, and because you grew up in a very, specific culture. I think it was a lot was expected from what you said of you to behave and interact and speak and conduct yourself in a certain way to fulfill the status quo. And because you've always been a trailblazer, you stepped out of that by nature. But in doing so, you learned a lot about the deception in that. Can you talk a little bit about what was expected of you back then in terms of your cultural upbringing? How did you get out of that? And talk a little bit about the boule and the deceptions thereof.
Well, a lot to unpack there, but I'll just say that my path also included a lot of clandestine things it was introduced by my father and his background. So I had a kind of different upbringing. My dad was rubbing shoulders with lots of powerful people, including Fidel Castro. And, I was around Fidel Castro, Jimmy Carter, you name it, like politicians. So my father, for one, he just very mysterious man, very intelligent. He was tested as a genius. So growing up with a genius father is a little adventurous, I'll say, a little different. So being around my dad and his friends and schoolmates, like he stayed in touch with people he went to school with. So it was always like, I was around the people that were the movers and shakers, I'll say.
Mm,
And with that, you are you're conditioned. You're raised to think a certain way. Of course, you're expected to be educated, very successful financially. You're expected to do a lot of different things, travel, be well cultured. And my father was just that type of person. So I was also, I guess you could say, socialized to be around children that were in that elite circle that they call the black boule. So being in a family of black boule people, um, I got to see a lot of things and didn't understand these things until later when it was more open to speak about. I didn't understand a lot of it, but I did my research and I questioned some things. And now people are coming forward. We're living in a time where secrets are now exposed. And that's what we're seeing because the name Black Boule wasn't thrown around a lot. There were people back in maybe, I would say the 90s, maybe 80s, possibly. There was a man who he spoke about the Black boule. He was actually, I guess you could say, kind of like me, outside of it, sort of the circle. But his name was Steve Coakley. If anybody ever wants to do definitive research on the Black boule, I would say Stephen Coakley is one of the best. He is not with us anymore, and there are a lot of theories on why he is not with us anymore. He had a very odd kind of ending, but he got as close as anybody, I would say, has gotten to revealing who they are. Now, they are the hidden hand that moves within the Black society. They are the hidden power structure, and they stay hidden very well because so many people don't know about this, even now that we're talking about it more. It's really hard for people to understand because of the racial stuff we have going on in the country. We have people on both sides that do not understand who really runs things, you know.
Hmm.
They buy into the propaganda. I've had people say, I didn't know Black people dressed like that in the 1800s. Like I show a picture of Black people dressed as Victorians, and they're like, I didn't know that. They really buy into every Black person was a slave, you know, living on dirt floors, you know. It's weird because Hollywood has done this to all of us, Black and white.
Hmm.
It was me too. I bought into the movies, you know, Oprah, Steven Spielberg, Roots, even Alex Haley. Remember Roots from the 70s? Turned out he
I do.
lied, and, you know, terrible. A Black boule member. And if you're dealing with this whole lie, it's such a big lie to tell because now it's unraveled. It makes no sense.
Hmm.
So that's why the Black boule can stay hidden so well, because people think that Black people were all slaves. Every Black person was a slave. You know, so my family, people in my family were never slaves. So that right there, you have to question, okay, if your family were never slaves, how do you have the name Washington? I would ask everybody to bring me that answer because I can't answer that question. And I've been doing lots of research. So all of us are waking up to something being wrong with this narrative. Because if the 1800s were when supposed the slavery ended, how did Black people become so educated so quickly? Think about that. They said, oh, Black people could never go to school, they couldn't learn. How did they learn to become scientists? I have scientists in my family. How did they become scientists back in the 1800s if they were not allowed to learn? So you see how that becomes like, wait a minute, it doesn't make sense. I have family members with the name Washington that were scientists, literally. My dad's, he was a scientist, you know. So the Black boule stands in the way of the truth really coming out about who are these so-called Black people in America. They prevent this truth from coming forth. So they are a hand of Satan's kingdom because Satan's kingdom is all about deception. And they work in a deceptive system of keeping certain so-called Black people on the bottom, you know, and they get to be the chosen Black people because they are elite. They go to the best colleges, they get the best jobs. They help each other. It's a little fiefdom of so-called Black excellence, which you can pack it all into Black excellence. That's their hashtag term. Thank you, Puffy, P. Diddy. Black excellence. So that's a catch-all term. And it's now become disgusting because what is it really? Is it Black excellence that you just flaunt wealth? Meanwhile, every city in this nation is a dystopian nightmare for Black people. Every neighborhood that used to be a great neighborhood in Philadelphia alone, in West Philadelphia, I could go down the streets and it's disgusting. And the Black people used to have so much dignity and pride and were standing upright and elevated in God's law. So the Black boule, just to sum them up, they engage in decadence, Luciferianism, hedonism, everything that they blame on white people, they engage in. But they do it in a hidden way, and they get to never have accountability because every time they're brought to the carpet, they can claim, don't bring a Black person down. This is racism. That is the reason that it's all imploding right now. It's all imploding. We are witnessing in real time the absolute fall of the Black boule. And you can write that down, that I told you that. If you hadn't noticed, they are falling as we speak. Shannon Sharp. Yeah. The Diddy case coming up next month.
Yep.
It's going to be the absolute reckoning of the Black boule, the Diddy case. Absolute. So they were in power, you can say, since the 1800s. And every arm of every group like that, these hidden hand groups, these oaths, secret oaths, these groups have to be judged by God. People are making stands now. They are coming away from it. But anybody still aligned with the Black boule is going to fall. Because I didn't say it. Go look at what God says. We are not to have Greek gods, Roman gods. I know for sure my tribe was never supposed to chase and whore after foreign gods. And that's what my tribe is doing right now. I call them my tribe. You all may call them Blacks or African Americans. That's not even their terminology. That's the Black boule allowing that to happen. So my tribe is all confused about who they are identity-wise and who they are in terms of their relationship to the Most High Yah. So that's why the Black boule will fall, because they have stood in the way of these things. They have allowed Jesse Jackson, who is part of the Black boule, to classify my tribe as African Americans. We are not African Americans. We are not from Africa. My tribe is from here. We are indigenous Americans, period, point blank. We were not slaves. We were prisoners of a war. You do the math. Indigenous Americans, prisoners of war. You figure out what happened, because we're all going to have to tell the truth about what happened. I didn't come from Africa, period. If I did, I would have artifacts that told me that. I got a bunch of people with the name Washington in my family and other names, Irish names, and this. Nobody can tell the truth about what's going on. So that's why it's all going to fall. And I know I've taken a lot of time to explain the black boule, but I just wanted to kind of get to the heart of they are the enemies of the so-called black people.
Mhm.
Because the fact that the title black is on a group of people, that is a crime in itself. And that was allowed on the watch of the black boule. They even have it in their term, black. So they're against God. They are unlawful. They're unlawful.
Mhm.
And they've caused a lot of people to fall with them because a lot of them know the truth. A lot of them, they read hidden esoteric information. They know what's going on. So there'll be no excuses. But the one thing I know is we are now on the precipice of all this truth coming out. And everybody that is not right in right standing with God, sorry, you have a mighty foe to deal with. Anybody who stands up against him.
Mhm.
I don't think you'll win. No one has so far, right?
No.
So that's my, I'll say, verdict on the black boule. The more I look into what they have done to my people, they are the enemy. I don't look at white people as the enemy. Because when you look at people like, for instance, what's going on with Shannon Sharp right now? Who told Shannon Sharp to do that? Did a white person tell him to go pick up a girl in a gym who's underage? Did a white person get him to do that? Because right now he's claiming all this is racism. No, he doesn't get to do that. And nobody is going to get to do that anymore. The racism card is torn up, burned. It is burned up.
Yeah.
It's over. So the black boule is finished because they were the ones upholding this black stuff. They were the ones on TV upholding it all. As you see, they're all falling. Joy Reid, what's the other guy's name? They're all being taken off of the air.
Yeah.
It's over. The thing is over. The whole whatever, it's collapsing. So yeah, I get passionate because I've been around these people and I have peeped a lot of their fakeness. I can't stand a fake person. That's one of like that's such a pet peeve, fake people. I've been around fake people so much in my life and I had to bite my tongue. I felt before 2020, I used to bite my tongue a lot with these people. No more. I don't bite it anymore. I don't know what else to say.
I think you said it all. I mean, that was great. If I could high five you, I would, but this doesn't allow for that to happen. We'll do that in person. We'll do that in
I
person.
receive it.
No, yeah, exactly. No, I was just enjoying and absorbing it. Trying to process everything you just said because we've had this discussion before and I've heard you say it before. And obviously, I'm in alignment with you. And I think what you're talking about is the great facade of everything. The great deception of Satan is falling apart from race to finances to food to how we interact as a society to the justice system. I mean, it goes on and on down the line, which is what our channel is wholly, I believe, by God, tasked to do. Why we have this platform for the season. And it is a season. It's not sustainable long term for either one of us. We all have got to go live our lives, and we're just trying to get God's people from point A to point B and be the intermediary connector. But that being said, um, this question, give me a minute to unwind it a minute because if I don't give you context, it won't make sense. So we have a great team member on our channel. I don't know if you watch our channel, Joe Williams, who happens himself to be melanated, we'll say, as a fair term, just down the middle. I don't really, obviously, I don't care about that because I'm talking to you, but and to him, it's because the heart doesn't have a color; it's a soul, and that's only comes from God, right? So anyway, without getting to the PC train there, um, he's just a great brother in the Lord, as you are a sister in the Lord, and he and I were watching during the scamdemic. You had opportunities to watch things you did before, and there was a gentleman. I don't know if you remember him, the late Kevin Samuels, and he had a really interesting perspective. And what I liked about him was two things: the psychology of dating and relationships between men and women. I just find that subject fascinating as somebody who wants to be, married myself and have a family. I minored a little bit in college in psychology, so the study of one-on-one, henceforth these kinds of dialogues, has always been interesting.
Mhm.
Inside of what he was sharing, he was very passionate, like you, in a different way, complimentary, about bringing melanated people back together, because he was explaining that prior to 19, I want to say it's prior to 1960, roughly 80% of your culture was getting married, as you said, the Victorian era, and melanated people took pride in their appearance and their status, just like whites and every other culture for that matter. It's really about a mindset and less about a culture, and even less so about a color, right? It's all the 18 inches between the brain and the heart that really, I think, defines a person in many, many ways. He was saying prior to that, it was 80%. He said after 1960, with the feminist Jezebel Delilah spirit, I think he was saying now with most quote black slash melanated women, about 28%, not even think, like 25, 26% of melanated women will actually get married, in large part to the Jezebelian society and the boule and all those things that are intertwined as a great deception, which you already articulated. So Joe's contention is that it will take 1 to 2 generations for this to ferret itself out. My question to you would be, with all that in mind, do you agree, or do you think it will be accelerated because the boule is disintegrating now?
That's a good question. And I would hope that it won't take as long as if we were looking at it like on a worldly basis, based in psychology and things like that, it would take that 2, 3 generations to turn some things around. Now, I've heard 17% that it's as low as. Yeah. So 25
Really?
is better. Yeah, I've heard 17%.
Yikes. Okay.
So what what I'm thinking about this issue is it has to be an act of God for it to be accelerated, of course, right? It has to be supernatural. And I hold out that hope that there will be an event of some sort. I don't believe the same narrative I believed before about events that are to come and how they will play out. I'm not as scared of the doom and gloom as I was before, expecting it. But I'm focused on the kingdom of God come just being pulled through. And I know, and in my soul something has to happen. And something has to happen, his return, in other words. Uh, and in terms of my tribe, I'll call them, because it
Mhm.
is hard to get away from the terms white and black.
Yeah.
I think we both need to let go of those terms, white and black, because they were just created in the 1800s anyway. They're new terms. They mean nothing really.
Right.
And in terms of law, they mean something, but in terms of classification of a people, it's not legitimate. So my little tribe that are indigenous to America, that excludes other people from other parts of the world that may look like my tribe just based on color, but not lineage and things. So my tribe has whored after foreign gods. We've literally broken a contract with the Most High Yah that we had in place. So we broke our contract with him, and the heads of our families, the heads of our tribes were decapitated our heads were taken out. So that means our families fell and crumbled. When you take the heads off, you crumble the family. It's real logical what happened. And then you become matriarchal and fifth wave crazy feminism. So feminism is coming to its conclusion, hence the blue cuckoos that went up to space and think that they're astronauts. They have even feminists saying, what the heck?
Yeah.
That was one of the best things they could have done for the feminist movement, to put a final nail in it almost. Because that was so stupid that even stupid people saw through it.
Mm.
So all the conspiracy theory people could sit back and eat their popcorn. They've been telling everybody that it's all fake. So this is why I know the return of Jesus is close, because he's allowing all of the cards, the house of cards on all of these ideologies, because that's what they are. They are ideologies, worldviews, and they're crumbling because they can't sustain, because only truth stands and remains in the end, because it takes too much energy to maintain a lie. And we're seeing how Satan's kingdom is crumbling. Every day it's examples of how his kingdom is crumbling and how more and more ground is taken from his kingdom because his puppets are falling, his tools. So that's why it's all going to happen in a way like I didn't expect it to happen this way. I didn't know how it would happen, but it's happening. I'm watching the crumbling of a kingdom, but I'm watching my God's kingdom rise. So his people will rise. Regardless of this black stuff, anybody still considering themselves black and ascribing to a classification in law that says you are not a human being. You have no standing in law. So, how many times do we have to say that? It's no standing in law to call yourself black. So, why are you going to keep doing it? This is the definition of insanity. So, it's got to be a reclassification of my tribe. We are not black. But we have to also get back to Yah's law, because that's the only way we can stand up and be upright again. It's really basic. And that's going to heal the gulf that exists between the man and the woman. And I know that Kevin Samuels dealt with it from, from the culture, right?
Right.
But it related to all relationships, because all cultures are having problems right now because of the feminist movement.
Yes.
Nobody is demure and feminine, right? The trad wives, that's why everybody loves that trad wife stuff. I can't get enough of it. What's Nora Smith on TikTok? This woman is just preparing food. She looks so beautiful and she's making everything from scratch. Like, she makes the candy and the chewing gum that her family eats. Of course, I know it's all staged, but she makes it look so good. You want to believe it. Because you know what? I think women are tired of it. Just tired of, first of all, the so-called black women are exhausted, totally exhausted. You could hear it in the testimonies. They're admitting to it. You have Tracy Ellis Ross, just came out a few days ago talking about she's mourning the life she didn't have, meaning the picket fence, the husband and the kids and the golden retriever, right? She didn't get that life. But she got the Hollywood life. Yay! You're rich. You go on nice girls' trips You can eat at all the five-star restaurants. You don't need a man, remember?
Yeah.
But now, when you're 40s, 50s, now the girls are mourning now, by the way.
Hmm.
They're
Hmm.
mourning.
They are.
Yeah, they're mourning.
Hmm.
Because you got to tell the truth. You have to tell the truth, especially the girlies that have had a lot of abortions, especially the girlies that had a lot of abortions, that their womb is a tomb. Yeah,
Mm.
you're mourning.
Wow.
You don't want to listen to truth. You can't kill your babies and be happy in your 50s. Sorry. The feminist movement isn't going to tell the girlies that. They're
Right.
going to keep lying to them. But that's okay because the lies are now being exposed because all the feminists from the Gen X, they're in mourning. That bought into the lie and
Yep.
put their job and career and everything before having a family, having children.
Mhm.
Remember, it's your body, your choice, girls. So you don't want to listen to truth and wisdom and come back to the ancient path. Those are the ones that are not going to make it. It's the weeds and the tares.
Yes.
So that's what's going to happen. The tares are going to blow away when the winnowing fork, right, on the threshing floor,
Hmm.
that wind's going to come, gone. Poof. The wheat remains, and the wheat will experience restoration and healing, reconciliation in all areas. That
Yes.
includes this racial bull crap
Yes.
because somebody has to forgive somebody
Mm.
to go forward. We can't keep all this. But those voices that like to keep it all stirred up, they're going to be gone. They're not coming into the kingdom. They will be outside the gates, period.
Mm.
And I got a receipt on that being true. They will not be in the kingdom. So they can enjoy the life that they want. We don't want it.
Nope.
No more of it. We're going to experience restoration because Yah's kingdom will come. Nothing will stop it. And his will be done. Not my will, not the will of the feminists, nobody's will but his. That's what I know is happening right now.
Yeah.
That's what's happening. So all the voices like Kevin Samuels, who they were yelling in the wilderness, some people were listening. Yeah, he might have been off a little bit on some things, but
Sure.
who's perfect, right? He
Right.
brought a message that was needed at that moment. He needed to break the overconfidence of the so-called boss chicks, right?
Right. Right.
They needed to be, yeah,
Humbled.
yeah, a little slice of humble pie. Truth. And you notice when they would call him up, he wasn't calling them, they were calling him.
Right.
And they were asking him questions, and when he would tell them what he thought, they would crash out, right? Oh,
Hmm.
he's this, he's that. You called him. He didn't call you. It was just like, what are you doing, ladies? You want us to really hate this guy? Well, he found a market that is really a good niche. And he was saying things that I think needed to be said. It was a little harsh, but it was needed. It was needed.
The truth is often harsh, but it also sets you free. Johnny 32, and
Amen.
that I don't you thank you, Jennifer. I'm smiling on the inside because so much of what you said just cuts to the heart of the matter, proverbially speaking. And I'm going to use a word that I don't use very often, and I don't say it insincerely because we need to be careful when we say it. But I hate feminism. It has destroyed men as much as women because it's created division, which is what the enemy is always here to do: seek, kill, and destroy. But God came to bring life and life abundantly. And so it has sold women. I've talked to women of different cultures, ages, whatever, even if they're conservative or liberal, if they're reasonable, just reasonable, rational people, they have admitted to me and others that feminism sold women on a bill of goods, that they don't need men, that they can trade in family for a career, only to find out it's the great deception. And as Kevin rightly pointed out, men built the world that you live in, right? I mean, the you're sitting on a chair, the cabinet's behind you, the microphone you made, the house that you're sitting in, chances are men built it in some capacity, if not the majority. And it's not to say that women can't do those jobs. They're just not by and large choosing those jobs. And there's a whole argument to that, which we don't need to get into and don't have the time for. But the point is that you even said it yourself. Your tribe or melanated women are exhausted. Why? Because they're taking on a role that they were never meant to play. You're not supposed to be mom and dad. That's why you're in chaos, because you're out of order. Even Kevin would tell you that. That's just logical. It's just cogency. And so this is more of a rhetorical question, but I just want to hear you say it from your own words. You're right that you said it perfectly. We from the terrors, we're seeing a dividing line happening right now. It's been drawn in the sand and it will not be crossed again. So, inside of all the destruction, it seems like we're going to be entering a new season of peace, prosperity, godly marriages, godly spouses, godly guardians, right? Because they're not our children, they're God's children. We're just a guardian stewardship of them on earth for a time. Would you say that that's the joy or the consolation in the aftermath of the destruction of the boule?
Yeah, I could say that because when you witness these things happening and you pray and you ask for understanding and you realize, yeah, maybe it's not happening the way I thought, but it's happening, like I said. And restoration, when you really look into it and meditate on those words, I love those words. I often write them down. I just write reconciliation, restoration, all of those words, resurrection, powerful word. I love to just look at the word on paper and just think about it.
Yeah.
And it makes it more real. Like I'm anticipating restoration. And when I think about it, I really think about it lately in practical ways. Like, I'll give you an example. I've been cleaning up like a lot, doing some spring cleaning,
Mm-hmm.
even helping out with my mom's, like my stepfather died and, a lot of his effects and things, and just sorting things out.
Right.
And the one thing like I realize is that when I talked about we had a very high quality of life, when I go through the effects of some of my ancestors, because it's not just my stepfather, it's like other family members that have passed on. I'm going through books and things and pictures. But one of the things I'm noticing, like one of the things I found, it was a wooden box with, you remember, everybody had them in their homes. Wooden box with a little foot thing, and it was a
Mm.
shoe box that
Oh
you
yeah.
keep the shoe polishes in
Yeah.
and the rags and the brushes. You remember the saddle soaps
Oh
and
yeah, 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 sure.
the colors, because everybody had a black pair of shoes or kind of more burgundy brown. So you
Brown.
had all those different like shoe polishes
Mm-hmm.
and the clear ones if you had like the different kind of different suedes.
Mm-hmm.
People used to take care of things. And that was what, like, God is just speaking to me in those ways where I'm looking at the shoebox and I'm like, this might be trash to somebody, There are generations that are here that don't even know what that is. They don't, that's a weird thing to see. But what it's telling me is that we need to return back to those ways, like a slower way of living.
Mm.
And taking care of our things, having better stewardship, not fast fashion where, oh, I'll get a new pair of sneakers next year. I'm just collecting, hoarding sneakers. And it's insanity.
Yeah.
Whereas just a couple of granddads ago, the men were polishing their shoes, taking time, beautifully restoring things. You didn't
Mm.
have to get a new pair of shoes. You resole. We had people that could resole your shoes.
Yep.
See, that's a form of restoration. And that's what God is speaking to my spirit when I look at those things. That wasn't that long ago that we lived in a more elevated way. We didn't have all the foreign interference. You see how that comes up? And now we see how it's affected us, not just in the tariff trade war, it's been spiritually because those foreign gods have come here. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yep.
They brought they brought their gods, and we have gone whoring after these gods. And I'm going to tell you another thing, Jonathan. Bear with me. I'm just trying to
No, you're fine.
add a little tissue. Oh, here it is. Sorry.
You're good.
Um, okay, this is something that came to me, Jonathan, when I thought about those chicks that went up into space, and the patch had I don't know, Baphomet, I guess. I haven't looked into it deeply, but they kept talking about goddess, goddess this, right? Katy Perry, goddess, and the goddess, and it brought me close to the goddess, and this, and it was all this girl boss talk that I can't stand. It grates against me when I hear it.
Yeah.
So what what is dawning on me about this feminist movement? I'm going to bring it back, okay?
That's fine.
Is that was a foreign invasion. When you think about goddess worship, where in the world do we have goddess worship? I'll let you, do you know where in the world they have goddess worship? They have goddess worship. They have goddesses that are a part of the pantheon of other groups. See, I'm starting to put it on the doorstep of the culture that brought it. When you have a goddess that sticks her tongue out and she has skulls of men that she's standing on, she has machetes because she's decapitating men. She's angry. She is a goddess of destruction. What religion is that? That's not mine. But for some reason, that has invaded my culture because that is the root of feminism. I just figured it out. I was like, wait a minute. That goddess that destroys men, I won't say her name, but she destroys men. That's pretty crazy. They actually have her statue in front of CERN, if you
Mm.
remember. They have her
Mm.
statue in front of CERN. Now, I know a lot of people that delve into all these religions and they smorgasbord. I'm gonna take a little this, I like that. I want to
Mhm.
wear Lululemon yoga pants. I want to right? I
Right.
want it all. I've known women when I lived out in LA. One woman told me I got altars to every god, even yours. She said I'm making sure I cover all my bases. That's what she told me. I made sure that she knew about my God before she died. Trust me.
Wow.
But when she told me that, I was like, oh my God. I used to knit with her. I used to sit with her. I grew to love this woman. But when she told me that, I was like, oh no, no, no,
Mm.
no. I've got to visit with her, you know? So I'm saying that to say that I'm starting to really look at where is this feminism coming from? Where did it start to invade? When? Think about the hippie movement of the 70s, right? That we had a whole invasion of culture into our nation. That seems to be when all the relationships started to dissolve, right? Because we had a lot of different worldviews coming in.
Mhm.
So I'm just saying that to say that feminism is really couched in Satanism and
Yeah.
other gods,
Right.
period. It is not, it doesn't coincide, it's not compatible with my faith. So anybody in my tribe that ascribes to feminism is unlawful, is out just outside of the laws of the Most High Yah.
Mhm.
Period. They are chasing after a foreign god, goddesses, and all that. So they're going to have to answer to that. And feminism is crashing and burning. It is.
Thank goodness.
It's terrible. It's filthy and disgusting.
Both sides lose. Bottom line.
Exactly.
Nobody wins in that game.
Nobody wins,
Nobody wins, especially the players. Um,
especially.
so as we close up, because you and I could spend hours on this, and it's a fabulous discussion. I mean, we'll have to do this again, obviously. Uh, when you and I last spoke a while ago, you were, and I think it's a nice way to sort of put a nice bow on the discussion for now. You were working on some humanitarian projects, obviously, with the prosperity that's coming for God's people specifically. I call it kingdom projects, some call it humanitarian semantics. It's fine. Uh, there were some initiatives that you had. Can you talk about, or is that still in play? Are there things that you're looking to do in this new season? Can you touch on that?
Oh, sure. Well, I know we talked about things back in like a few years ago. I have refined some of the things, God has been on a path. I've been on his path of just understanding what it is and where I'm being led. And
Mhm.
I really believe it's racial reconciliation. It's really going to be in that area, racial reconciliation. And I am now going out again and reconnecting with my local community. So I'm really touching grass, as the kids say. So
Yeah.
I'm going out to my local farmers markets and I'm going to teach fiber arts to the people, whoever wants to come and sit. I used to do that when I lived in LA. I would sit with, I called them the knitterali. I would go up, I lived in Thousand Oaks and different places, Corona, and even down Laguna Niguel.
Okay.
I'm still connected with a lot of those women, but they are liberal. A lot of them, they don't like my stances anymore. But I used to sit and knit with them and spend so much time, and it was such a community. And I loved it because, like I said, the woman I told you she had an altar to every god,
Mhm.
she died from cancer, but we really like poured into her and we were there for her. And I think her family might have lived. No, her family lived in the area, but we were her family as well, and we just surrounded her with love. But I want to bring that sense of that type of community with a creative thing because the fiber arts are very healing. And God knit us together in our mother's womb. He is the master knitter, okay? And I give him all the glory because it is such a beautiful thing. When I was working out in LA, I had a patient who was a Vietnam vet, and he told me that he would go to the beach and he would crochet hats, and it helped him with his PTSD and depression. And he
Mm.
said it even alleviated the thoughts of wanting to like self harm. So I know even through research that it heals the mind and everything. So I want to bring the beauty of creating things back to the people, teaching young people. I had a little boy ask me to teach him. Can you imagine a little guy? He was like, I want to learn that because he saw the stuff that I made. And I was like, I'm going to teach you. I'm going to teach you. and somebody asked me to do it. So this is my mission, and I could see how blacks and whites were
Yeah.
just together. No problems, okay? I know they're trying to stir up this thing that's going on right now.
Oh, yeah.
It's that dog ain't hunting, by the way. Okay? They're not going to get their race war. I
No.
know they're gunning for their race war. It's not going to happen. Sorry. You could gin up whatever you want.
Yeah.
It's they don't have the power they used to have. Because let me tell you, if they were going to have a race war, they would have kicked it off already.
Right.
Can't do
And
it. He is not going to allow that to happen. So now we are in a place of reconciliation, and that's what I want to do as a humanitarian thing. I've been saying it since 2020, since I had all the channels taken away from me.
right.
I always envision us coming together, because growing up in Philadelphia, we used to have block parties and stuff, and the community would come together. And I'm like, we need to do that, blacks and whites. And we need to do it over food. Yes.
Right.
Okay. How
Making
can you
bread.
hate somebody when you're eating some good peach cobbler,
Mm.
homemade, right?
Yeah. That's a good
We
point.
need to break bread. We need to talk and be honest. Even if it's ugly, we need to be able to say it to each other. Any perceived offenses, we need to be honest about what we've perceived, what we've fallen for. I've fallen for the crap. I was into the Black liberation theology. I was listening to all that crap. I had to repent. And I am going to tell you honestly, I was caught up in the BS. My mind definitely got caught up in the BS. And I am ashamed of that. Really ashamed of it. So I will put myself out there to be a change agent, to be a part of a conversation of reconciliation and forgiveness.
Nice.
So you know how you see that thing they call a dinner in blanc or something? They have them
Mm.
in the cities where everybody, wears white and, oh no, white. I'm thinking puffy parties, but like,
Yeah.
gosh, he's ruined everything.
Yeah, I know. Well,
So,
that was their goal.
yeah, but so, they get together. It's so beautiful, but I can see us doing that on on the local level, just getting together, breaking bread and talking. So people have been talking to me like, "Oh my God, we need to do this." They want to do it. The people are
Mm.
ready. So I'm ready. I'm willing. I'm excited. I have a lot of plans, and I'm praying for my resources to come. So I know God will provide. And it's not a lot that's needed. It's just, I want to just present things in a nice way. I love presenting things nicely, so I want to have a
Mhm.
nice thing to create the space, and
Right.
do it nice. That's my
Elegantly.
thing. It looks
Elegantly.
good and everything, tastes
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. Yeah. It's elegant and it's classy and
Exactly.
refined. Yeah, well,
Yeah.
that's consistent with your nature and who you are and how you were raised. So that makes sense.
Thank
Great, thank you for that. As we close, Jennifer, last words for the audience, as I always do with my guests, and where can people find your work?
Oh, you can find me. I have a channel that I'm building up right now. Finally, maybe this will be my last channel on YouTube. They might not take it from me, but
Right.
I'm trying to be careful with all the words. So you can find me on all of the socials under Jennifer Easton Washington. I try to keep it consistent. I do a little TikToking, but I pretty much push the same stuff out, but I just make sure I can push it to YouTube and um, Instagram and Facebook, same name. Yeah. So my channel over on YouTube is the Cultural Reckoning, and I'm just bringing the culture to a reckoning as I see it.
Nice, nice. Well, I'll make sure that we leave those links in the description so people can find your different channels, which I know you'll give me afterwards.
Thank
Thanks, Jennifer. It's good to connect with you again. Let's do this again soon. Jennifer Easton, Washington. Thank you for all that you've done, all that you are doing and will do. And I think that God is smiling upon you fastidiously for the work that you're doing to serve the kingdom of God. Thank you for being here today, and we look forward to having you again soon.
thank you. God bless you.
God bless.